The vast darkness of space suddenly filled with light as 12 enormous ships appeared near the edge of Earth's solar system. Each vessel stretched for miles, their metal surfaces gleaming like silver mountains floating in the void. Inside the largest ship, Fleet Commander Thexvar stood before a massive viewing screen, his 6 eyes studying the small blue planet ahead. "Begin the approach," Thexvar ordered. His voice carried the authority of someone who had commanded fleets across the galaxy for 3 centuries. Behind him, dozens of his crew members worked at strange glowing panels, their long fingers dancing across controls that hummed with alien energy. The Veltari had last visited this system 500,000 years ago. Back then, they found primitive creatures barely able to make fire. The mission reports described simple ape-like beings who lived in caves and used stone tools. The Veltari scientists had taken samples, made recordings, and left. It was just another world with early life forms that might evolve into something interesting given enough time. Now they had returned to see what had become of those primitive humans. Far below on Earth's moon, Dr. Kang Ji-woo was working late in the Luna Observatory when her instruments started screaming warnings. The massive radio telescope had detected something impossible. 12 objects larger than anything humans had ever built, moving toward Earth at incredible speed. "This can't be right," she whispered, checking her readings again. The objects were slowing down, which meant they were under intelligent control. They were also giving off energy signatures unlike anything in her database. Ji-woo's hands shook as she activated the emergency communication system. Within seconds, her call reached Admiral Park Hyun-woo at the Global Defense Council headquarters in Switzerland. "Admiral, we have a situation," Ji-woo said, her voice tight with tension. 12 massive objects just appeared at the edge of our system. They're definitely artificial and they're heading straight for Earth. Admiral Park had spent 30 years preparing for this moment. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer. "Send all data to Dr. Lee Soman at the Physics Institute," Park ordered. "I'm calling an emergency session. How long until they reach Earth?" "At their current speed, maybe 6 hours," Ji-woo replied. Meanwhile, aboard the Veltari flagship, Science, Coordinator Netherall was getting confused readings from her sensors. The planet below showed signs of advanced technology. Artificial structures in orbit, energy patterns that suggested sophisticated civilization, and electromagnetic signals that seemed far too complex for the primitive species they expected to find. "Commander," Netherall called out, her voice uncertain. "I'm detecting unusual activity around the 3rd planet. The energy readings don't match our previous surveys." Thexvar turned from the viewing screen. "Explain." "There are artificial structures in orbit, many of them. And the electromagnetic spectrum is filled with organized signals. It's almost as if—" She paused, not wanting to say what she was thinking. "As if what?" Thexvar demanded. "As if there's an advanced civilization down there." The commander laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a storm. "Impossible. Our last survey was only 500,000 years ago. That's barely a moment in evolutionary time. The creatures we found were using stone tools. They couldn't have developed space technology so quickly." But Netherall's instruments didn't lie. As they got closer to Earth, the readings became more impossible to ignore. There were massive structures floating in space around the planet. The moon had been turned into some kind of industrial complex, and the signals coming from Earth's surface suggested a planet-wide communication network more advanced than anything the Veltari had ever seen. On Earth, Dr. Lee Salmon was having the most exciting day of her career. The alien energy signatures were unlike anything in human physics textbooks, but she was starting to understand them. Her quantum computers were working day and night to decode the alien technology, and the results were fascinating. They're using some kind of space-folding drive, she explained to the emergency council meeting. The energy pattern suggests they can bend space-time to travel faster than light. But here's the interesting part. Their technology seems less advanced than ours in some areas. Admiral Park leaned forward. What do you mean? Their computers are using binary systems. We moved past that centuries ago. Their energy production shows they're still using fusion reactors, while we've been using zero-point energy for decades. It's like they've developed amazing space travel, but stopped advancing in other areas. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The aliens might be more advanced in some ways, but humanity had apparently surpassed them in others. Back on the Veltari ship, Thexavar was becoming increasingly uncomfortable. His sensors now showed massive cities on Earth's surface, space elevators reaching into orbit, and what appeared to be artificial structures on every planet in the solar system. The asteroid belt had been completely mined out and rebuilt into some kind of massive construction project. "This is impossible," he muttered, staring at the readings. "No species evolves this quickly." His communication officer suddenly stood up, all 6 eyes wide with shock. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission from the planet." "That's expected. Primitive species often try to communicate when they see our ships." "Sir, the transmission is in our language." The bridge fell silent. Every member of the crew turned to stare at the communication officer. "That's impossible," Thexvar said slowly. "Our language is based on mathematical principles that take centuries to understand. These primitives couldn't possibly—" "The message is perfect, sir. They're using formal scientific terminology and requesting permission to establish diplomatic contact. They also say they've been waiting for us to return." Thexvar felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries: fear. How could these primitives know the Veltari language? How could they know about the previous visit? And most importantly, how had they developed technology that seemed to surpass the Veltari in some areas? On Earth, Captain Kim Do-hyun was preparing his ship for humanity's first contact with an alien species. The UES Prometheus was the most advanced vessel in Earth's fleet, equipped with technology that would have seemed like magic to humans from just a century ago. Its hull could shift between dimensions, its weapons could manipulate time itself, and its computers were powered by artificial consciousness more complex than the human brain. "All systems ready, Captain," reported his first officer. "Dr. Yoon, Mina has finished preparing the translation protocols." Dr. Yoon Mina looked up from her workstation, where dozens of holographic displays showed the results of her analysis. "I've decoded their language completely. It's actually quite simple once you understand the mathematical base. Our AI systems cracked it in about 3 hours." Kim nodded. 3 hours to decode an alien language that had probably taken the aliens themselves thousands of years to develop. It was just another sign of how far humanity had come. As the human ship moved toward the alien fleet, both sides prepared for a meeting that would change everything. The Veltari expected to encounter primitive beings barely capable of space flight. Humanity knew they were about to meet the species that had visited Earth long ago. The same species whose DNA samples and technological remnants had helped guide human development for the past 500,000 years. Neither side was prepared for what they would actually find. The UES Prometheus moved through space like a silver needle threading through the darkness. Captain Kim Do-hyun stood on the bridge, watching the alien fleet grow larger on his screens. Behind him, his crew worked quietly at their stations. Nobody spoke much. They all knew they were about to make history. "Alien fleet is responding to our approach, Captain," reported Lieutenant Commander Won Jae-won from the communications station. "They're requesting permission to send a small delegation aboard our ship." Kim almost smiled. The aliens still thought they were dealing with primitives who would be honored by their presence. They had no idea what they were walking into. "Grant." "Permission," Kim ordered. "Dr. Yoon Mina, are your translation systems ready?" Dr. Yoon Mina nodded from her station, surrounded by floating holographic displays. "All set, Captain. I've also prepared cultural briefing files based on their language, patterns. Their communication style suggests a very hierarchical society with formal protocols for everything." The alien shuttle approached slowly. It was a beautiful craft, shaped like a teardrop made of some kind of living metal that shifted colors as it moved. Kim had to admit the aliens had style, even if their technology seemed a bit outdated in some areas. Aboard the Veltari shuttle, Science Coordinator Nethral was trying to control her nervousness. She had been chosen to lead the first contact team because of her experience with primitive species. But nothing about this felt primitive. The human ship they were approaching was impossibly smooth, with no visible engines or weapons. Its hull seemed to shimmer and shift slightly, as if it wasn't entirely solid. The energy readings coming from it made no sense according to Veltari physics. "The human vessel is larger than it appears," reported her pilot. "Sensors indicate it has internal dimensions that exceed its external measurements." Nethral's stomach tightened. Dimensional manipulation technology was theoretical even for the Veltari. These humans had somehow made it practical. The shuttle bay doors opened to reveal a space that definitely should not have fit inside the human ship. The bay was enormous, with gleaming white walls that seemed to glow with their own light. Human. Crew members stood waiting, dressed in simple but elegant uniforms that somehow looked more advanced than anything the Veltari wore. Captain Kim stepped forward as the alien delegation emerged from their shuttle. The Veltari were tall, thin beings with pale blue skin and 6 eyes arranged around their oval heads. They moved gracefully, their long limbs flowing like water. "Welcome aboard the UES Prometheus," Kim said in perfect Veltari. "I am Captain Kim Do-hyun. On behalf of humanity, we greet you and welcome you back to our system." Nethral stopped walking. The human had spoken flawless Veltari, using formal diplomatic language that took decades to master. More importantly, he had said "welcome back," meaning these humans somehow knew about the previous visit 500,000 years ago. You speak our language," Nethral managed to say. "Dr. Yoon Mina decoded it from your transmissions," Kim replied casually. "She's quite good with languages. It only took her a few hours." Behind the captain, Dr. Yoon Mina stepped forward. She was a small woman with kind eyes, but when she spoke, every word was perfect Veltari. "Your language is beautiful. The mathematical base structure is elegant, though we found it interesting that you never developed quantum linguistic patterns." Nethral felt like she was falling. Quantum linguistic patterns were pure theory even for the most advanced Veltari scientists. This human woman spoke about them like they were common knowledge. "Perhaps we should move to a more comfortable setting," Kim suggested. "Dr. Yoon has prepared a briefing room where we can talk." The briefing room was another impossibility. The Walls showed real-time views of space in all directions, creating the sensation of floating in the void surrounded by stars. But more disturbing were the displays showing detailed information about the Veltari ships, technical specifications, crew numbers, and weapon capabilities that should have been impossible for the humans to know. "Please, sit," Dr. Yoon said, gesturing to chairs that molded themselves to fit Veltari physiology perfectly. "We've prepared some refreshments based on your species' nutritional requirements. The food that appeared was exactly what Netherall would have ordered on her home world. The flavor was perfect, the temperature ideal, the texture exactly right. The humans had somehow learned in a few hours what it had taken Veltari scientists centuries to understand about their own biology." "How do you know so much about us?" Netherall asked. Captain Kim and Dr. Yoon exchanged glances. "We've been studying the records of your previous visit for quite some time," Kim said carefully. "What records? We left no records." Dr. Yoon activated a holographic display. Images appeared in the air above the table. Perfect three-dimensional recordings of Veltari. Scientists working on Earth 500,000 years ago. The recordings showed everything: their equipment, their methods, their conversations. "We developed quantum archaeological techniques about 50,000 years ago," Dr. Yoon explained. "We can reconstruct past events by analyzing quantum echoes. In the space-time continuum, we have complete records of your entire survey mission." Netherall watched herself on the display, or rather, her ancestor who looked exactly like her. The recording showed the ancient Veltari taking DNA samples from primitive humans, analyzing their brain structure and discussing whether the species had any potential for advancement. "This is impossible," she whispered. "We found it quite educational," Kim said. "Your ancestors were very thorough. We learned a great deal from studying their methods." The implications hit Netherall like a physical blow. These humans had not only survived and evolved, they had developed technology advanced enough to watch the past itself. They knew everything the Veltari had done on their world, every secret, every private conversation. "We also found your genetic samples," Dr. Yoon added helpfully. "The ones your ancestors took from our people. We reverse-engineered your entire biological structure from the traces you left behind. That's how we knew what food to prepare and how to design the chairs." Captain Kim leaned forward slightly. "We hope you don't mind, but we also use some of your technological principles to advance our own development. The quantum mathematics in your computers were particularly helpful, though we've made quite a few improvements." Netherall tried to process what she was hearing. These humans had used Veltari science to bootstrap their own civilization. They had literally learned from their former observers and then surpassed them. "Your ship," she said weakly. "The dimensional technology?" "Oh, that's our own development," Kim said proudly. "We realized about a century ago that three-dimensional space was quite limiting. Most of our ships operate in 7 dimensions now. This one is actually quite small. It's designed for diplomatic missions." Dr. Yoon added, "We'd be happy to share the technology with you. We found that most species struggle with multidimensional engineering at first, but with proper training, anyone can learn it." The casual offer to share technology that was beyond Veltari understanding was somehow more shocking than anything else. These humans were treating her people like students who needed help with basic concepts. "We should probably discuss why. You've returned," Captain Kim said, "though we suspect you came to check on our evolutionary progress." Yes," Netherall managed. "Standard follow-up survey. We expected to find stone tools and cave paintings," Dr. Yoon suggested gently. "Yes, We read those expectations in your mission planning documents. They were quite detailed. Nethril realized she had to ask the question that was burning in her mind. How far have you advanced? What level of civilization have you achieved? Tiu. And Dr. Yoon looked at each other again. Finally, Kim spoke. Well, that's a bit complicated to answer. We've colonized most of this galaxy and several others. We've established diplomatic relations with 47 different species. We've solved aging, disease, and death. We can manipulate matter at the quantum level. Time travel is routine for our scientists, and we've developed artificial consciousness that surpasses biological intelligence. He paused, as if thinking about what else to mention. Oh, and we've been expecting your return for about 300,000 years. We've prepared quite a bit for this meeting. Netherall felt the last of her confidence crumble. The Veltari had returned expecting to study primitive humans. Instead, they had encountered a civilization that had not only surpassed them, but had been waiting for them to come back. The primitives had become the teachers, and the teachers had become the students. 3 days later, the Veltari delegation stood in the main plaza of New Geneva, Earth's capital city. Netherall had thought she was prepared for anything after the meeting on the human ship, but the reality of human civilization was beyond her worst fears. The city stretched impossibly high into the sky and deep into the earth at the same time. Buildings seemed to phase in and out of existence, appearing solid one moment and translucent the next. People moved through the air on platforms of pure energy, while others simply stepped through doorways that led to locations thousands of miles away. Ambassador Cho Sung-ho walked beside the alien delegation, his manner friendly but somehow intimidating at the same time. He was a small man with gray hair and kind eyes, but Netherall could sense the vast intelligence behind his casual demeanor. The city operates in 12 dimensions simultaneously, Cho explained as they walked. We found that limiting ourselves to 3 dimensions was quite inefficient. This way, we can fit about 50 million people in the same space that used to hold 50,000. Above them, a massive structure materialized out of thin air. It was a building the size of a mountain, appearing with no sound or disturbance. People continued their daily activities as if enormous structures popping into existence was perfectly normal. Was that always there? Asked Veltari military observer Keth Moral, his 6 eyes wide with shock. Oh, no, Cho replied cheerfully. That's the new cultural center. It was built in a parallel dimension and just shifted into our reality. The construction was finished this morning. Would you like to see inside? They have a lovely exhibit on pre-space human art. Netherall noticed that the humans around them were paying no attention to their alien visitors. Children played games that involved manipulating small balls of light with their minds. Adults read information that appeared as glowing text floating in the air. Everyone moved with the casual confidence of a species that had conquered every challenge the universe could offer. Your people seem very calm, Netherall observed. Why wouldn't they be? Cho asked, genuinely puzzled. We solved most of our major problems centuries ago. No one dies anymore unless they choose to. No one goes hungry. No one lacks shelter or education or purpose. What is there to be upset about? They paused near a fountain that wasn't really a fountain. Instead of water, it displayed flowing patterns of pure energy that somehow told the story of human evolution from the first primitive cells to their current state. Netherall watched her own species appear in the display, conducting their survey of ancient humans, then disappearing as humanity exploded into technological advancement. Dr. Han Yejin would like to meet with you. Cho said, checking a device that was apparently surgically implanted in his wrist. She's our director of biological sciences. She's excited to discuss some of our recent breakthroughs. They traveled to the research district using a transportation method that involved stepping into a column of light and instantly appearing in a different location. The research center was a building that seemed to exist in several different time periods at once. Parts of it were gleaming white and modern, while other sections showed the same space as it had been years or decades ago. Dr. Han Yejin met them in a lobby that overlooked what appeared to be the entire galaxy. She was a young woman with bright eyes and an enthusiasm that made Netherall deeply uncomfortable. "Welcome, welcome," Han said in perfect Veltari. "I've been studying your species for years. Well, studying the genetic samples your ancestors left behind. Fascinating biology. Though I have to say you could use some improvements." "Improvements?" Kethmaral asked weakly. "Oh yes, your cellular structure is quite inefficient. You age, you get sick, you die. We fixed all those problems in humans about 200,000 years ago. Here, let me show you." Han led them to a window that looked down into a vast laboratory. Below, Netherall could see humans working with equipment she couldn't begin to understand. Some of the humans were clearly very old, ancient beyond anything possible for Veltari, but they moved with the energy and strength of young adults. "That gentleman there is Dr. Kim Hansel." Han pointed to a man working at a complex machine. "He's about 400,000 years old. He was one of our early genetic engineers. Still does good work, though he's thinking about taking another 50,000-year vacation soon." Netherall felt sick. The Veltari rarely lived past 3,000 years. This human was older than the entire recorded history of her civilization. "We can transfer consciousness too," Han continued excitedly. "If someone gets tired of their body, we can move them to a new one. Or they can exist as pure thought in our quantum networks. Death is really just another lifestyle choice now." She turned to face the Veltari delegation directly. "We could offer you the same modifications, if you're interested. It would only take a few hours to upgrade your entire species. We have all your genetic information already." The casual offer to casually rewrite Veltari biology was terrifying. These humans spoke about reshaping life itself, the way Netherall might discuss changing clothes. Their tour continued to the engineering district, where they met Lim Daeho, humanity's chief stellar engineer. He was working on what he called minor adjustments to the local solar system. "We're installing a second sun," he explained, pointing to a massive construction project visible in the sky. "The original star is getting a bit dim, so we're building a replacement. Should be online next week." Through the window, Netherall could see massive machines larger than planets working to assemble a new star from raw materials. The project was so vast it would have taken the Veltari centuries just to plan it. These humans were treating it like routine maintenance. "We've also finished the expansion project on Mars," Lim continued. "Increased its mass by about 40%, gave it a proper atmosphere, moved it to a better orbit. The new oceans should be ready for fish by next month." Kethmaral was staring at the star construction with the expression of someone watching their worldview collapse. "You're building a star. You're just building a star." "Oh, this is a small one," Lim said dismissively. "You should see the work we're doing in the Andromeda Galaxy. We're building a whole cluster of artificial systems. There. Much more impressive than this little project." Netherall realized that humans hadn't just developed advanced technology, they had developed the casual confidence that came with having no limits. They spoke about reshaping galaxies the way her people might discuss gardening. "We have records of your own stellar engineering attempts," Han added helpfully. "The failed star you tried to build in the Velkar system about 50,000 years ago. We could help you fix that if you'd like. Our technology has advanced quite a bit since then." The fact that humans knew about Veltari's most embarrassing technological failure was somehow worse than all their other revelations. These people had not only surpassed the Veltari, they had studied their mistakes and learned from them. As the day continued, Netherall met more humans and saw more impossible things. She saw children learning mathematics that would challenge the greatest Veltari scientists. She watched ordinary citizens manipulate matter with thought-controlled devices. She observed engineering projects that spanned multiple star systems, being managed by individual humans as casual hobbies. By evening, she was sitting in a guest quarters that was somehow larger inside than outside, staring out a window at Earth's transformed moon. The satellite was now covered in cities and industrial complexes, with massive structures extending into space like metal trees. Her communication device buzzed with a message from Fleet Commander Thexvar. "Report on human capabilities." Netherall stared at the message for a long time before typing her response. "We are no longer the advanced species in this relationship." She deleted the message and tried again. "Humans have exceeded our development in all areas." She deleted that too and finally wrote, "Recommend immediate return to home system. We are not equipped to deal with this situation." But even as she sent the message, she knew it was already too late. The humans knew the Veltari were here. They had been waiting for 500,000 years for this moment, and they had made it very clear that they had plans for this reunion. Netherall fell asleep that night wondering if her people would ever see their home system again, or if they would want to after they truly understood what humanity had become. The morning brought news that made Netherall's worst fears seem like pleasant dreams. During the night, several Veltari ships had attempted to scan human military installations using what they thought were undetectable sensors. The humans had not only detected every scan, they had responded by sending complete technical specifications of Veltari military technology back to the alien fleet. "It was meant as a friendly gesture," explained General Nam Jihoon as he met with the alien delegation in what humans called a secure briefing room. The room existed in a space between dimensions, completely cut off from normal reality. "We wanted to show that we have no secrets from each other." Netherall looked at the data the humans had sent. It was everything: weapon capabilities, shield frequencies, ship construction methods, even classified Veltari military codes that should have been impossible to obtain. Somehow, the humans had learned more about Veltari military technology in one night than some Veltari scientists knew after centuries of study. "How did you get this information?" Kethmarol asked, his voice barely a whisper. General Nam was a stocky man with kind eyes that somehow made his next words even more terrifying. "We scanned your ships while you were scanning ours. The difference is that our scans work." He activated a holographic display that showed the Veltari fleet in perfect detail. Every ship was mapped down to individual crew members. The display showed which aliens were sleeping, which were working, and which were having private conversations they thought no one could hear. "Your stealth technology is quite good," Nam said approvingly. "Very elegant design, but it only works in 3 dimensions. Since we operate in 7 dimensions normally, we can see around your hiding methods quite easily. Dr. Shin Ga-young, a small woman who had been introduced as the Director of Consciousness Research, stepped forward. We've also been monitoring your crew's psychological states. Several of your people are showing signs of severe stress. Would you like us to help with that? We have very effective treatment methods. The casual invasion of Veltari privacy was staggering. These humans were watching everything, understanding everything, and offering to help fix everything as if it was the most natural thing in the world. We appreciate your concern, Nethral said carefully. But some of my colleagues are wondering about human military capabilities. They would feel more comfortable if they understood your defensive systems. General Nam and Dr. Shin exchanged glances. Of course, Nam said. We'd be happy to demonstrate. Though I should warn you, our military technology can be a bit unsettling for species that haven't seen it before. They traveled to what Nam called a minor training facility located in a pocket dimension connected to Earth. The space was vast beyond imagination, filled with impossible geometries that hurt to look at directly. In the distance, Nethral could see what appeared to be entire star systems being used as training grounds. We'll start with something simple, Nam announced. He gestured to a lieutenant who activated a device that looked like a simple metal box. The universe changed. Suddenly, Nethral could see time itself flowing around them like a visible river. Past and future existed simultaneously, and she watched, in horror, as human soldiers moved through the time stream like fish swimming upstream. They were fighting an enemy that hadn't arrived yet, responding to attacks that wouldn't happen for several minutes. Basic temporal combat, Nam explained as his soldiers defeated enemies before the enemies had time to think of attacking. We find it's much more efficient to win battles before they start. Time manipulation is a required course for all our military personnel. The demonstration ended, and normal time resumed. Nethral felt like she had been holding her breath for hours. That was our introductory level technique, Dr. Shin added helpfully. Would you like to see intermediate level? We have some lovely demonstrations of reality manipulation and consciousness warfare. Before Nethral could say no, another demonstration began. This time, human soldiers were fighting enemies that seemed to be made of pure mathematics. The humans were using weapons that erased concepts from existence rather than just destroying matter. She watched one soldier point a device at an enemy tank, and suddenly everyone forgot that tanks had ever existed. The vehicle didn't explode or disappear. It had never been. Conceptual warfare, Nam explained. Very useful against species that rely heavily on technology. We can remove their understanding of how their own weapons work. The final demonstration was the worst. Human soldiers faced impossible odds. Thousands of enemies attacking from multiple dimensions simultaneously. The humans responded by splitting their consciousness across parallel realities, fighting the same battle in hundreds of different timelines at once, then selecting the reality where they won and making that the only timeline that existed. Probability manipulation combat, Dr. Shin said proudly. It took us about 50,000 years to perfect this technique. We found that it's much easier to change what happened than to deal with unfavorable outcomes. Nethral watched human soldiers casually rewrite reality to ensure their victory. They didn't just win the battle, they made it so the battle had always been won, erasing any possibility of defeat from the universe itself. Your turn, Nam said suddenly. What? Nethral asked. We'd like to see Veltari military capabilities. It's only fair since we showed you ours. Kethmeral stepped forward reluctantly. Our weapons are quite different from yours." "I'm sure they are," Nam said encouragingly. "Please, demonstrate anything you'd like. We have excellent defensive systems, so don't worry about causing damage." What followed was the most humiliating experience of Kethmeral's military career. The Veltari weapons, which had seemed incredibly advanced just days ago, now looked like toys. Their most powerful energy blasts were absorbed by human shields without even being noticed. Their advanced targeting systems couldn't lock onto human ships that existed in multiple dimensions. Their stealth technology was useless against sensors that could see through time itself. Worse, the humans provided helpful commentary throughout the demonstration. "Interesting energy matrix," Nam observed as a Veltari weapon fired. "Very stable design. You could probably increase the power output by about 3,000% if you adjusted the quantum resonance frequency. The targeting system is quite elegant," Dr. Shin added, "though it's limited to three-dimensional tracking. Have you considered upgrading to multi-dimensional targeting? We have some excellent tutorials we could share." After an hour of gentle humiliation, the demonstration ended. The humans had not only proven their complete military superiority, they had done it while offering helpful advice for improving Veltari weapon systems. "We hope this has been educational," Nam said as they prepared to return to normal space. "We believe strongly in military cooperation between species. If you ever need assistance with defense against hostile forces, please don't hesitate to ask." The offer of protection from beings who could manipulate time and reality was somehow more frightening than any threat would have been. These humans were so far beyond Veltari capabilities that they saw the aliens as children who might need help tying their shoes. As they returned to Earth, Dr. Shin made one final revelation that shattered what remained of Netheral's confidence. "Oh, I almost forgot to mention," she said casually. "We've been in contact with 47 other species across the galaxy. Most of them have joined our defensive alliance. It's really quite effective. We haven't had a serious galactic conflict in over 100,000 years." Netheral realized that humanity hadn't just surpassed the Veltari. They had surpassed everyone. The galaxy already belonged to these beings, who had once been primitive cave dwellers, and every other species was either their ally or their potential enemy. The Veltari had returned expecting to study evolution in action. Instead, they had discovered that evolution was studying them, and it had been preparing for this moment for 500,000 years. Professor Oh Jae-hyun stood before the largest holographic display Netheral had ever seen, his hands moving through the air as he manipulated images that showed the complete history of human civilization. But these weren't normal historical records. They were perfect three-dimensional reconstructions of actual events, down to individual conversations and private thoughts. "We call this the Memory Palace," Professor O explained. "Every moment of human history since your last visit, preserved in perfect detail. And thanks to quantum archaeology, we also have complete records of events from before that time." The display shifted to show Earth 500,000 years ago. Netheral watched her ancestors walking through primitive human settlements, completely unaware that their every action was being recorded by technology that wouldn't exist for hundreds of millennia. "Your science coordinator Velnath was quite thorough," O observed, zooming in on a Veltari scientist taking genetic samples from sleeping humans. She spent considerable time analyzing human brain structure. Her notes were particularly helpful for our own consciousness research. Netheral felt sick. "You can see their notes? We can see their thoughts?" O corrected gently. Quantum archaeology doesn't just record actions, it records the quantum state of consciousness itself. We know everything your ancestors thought during their visit. Every private concern, every scientific hypothesis, every personal opinion about human potential. The display showed Velnath examining primitive human tools with obvious disdain. A caption appeared showing her exact thoughts. Pathetic creatures. Limited intelligence, crude motor control, no technological aptitude. Recommend classification as evolutionary dead end. She was wrong about that last part, O said with a slight smile. Dr. Bae Seo-young, Earth's Director of Historical Sciences, joined them at the display. We found your ancestors' observations quite useful for planning our development. They identified several areas where human biology was inadequate for advanced civilization. We made sure to fix those problems early. The display shifted to show human evolution accelerating at an impossible rate. Instead of the gradual changes that should have taken millions of years, humanity leaped forward in massive technological bounds every few thousand years. This doesn't look natural, Kethmeral observed. It wasn't, Bae replied. Once we developed quantum archaeology and learned about your visit, we realized we were being tested. So we decided to pass the test with exceptional grades, she gestured, and the display showed human scientists working with Veltari genetic samples. Your ancestors left behind quite a bit of biological material. We reverse-engineered your entire species from traces of skin cells on the tools you used to examine us. Nethral watched in horror as humans systematically analyzed Veltari biology, psychology, and technology based on microscopic evidence left behind centuries ago. That's impossible. There wouldn't be enough material to... We developed some very sophisticated techniques, O said proudly. Quantum genetic reconstruction, consciousness archaeology, temporal biological analysis. By the time we were done, we understood your species better than you understand yourselves. The display showed the next phase of human development. Armed with complete knowledge of Veltari capabilities, humans had designed their civilization specifically to surpass their former observers. Every advancement was calculated, every breakthrough planned to exceed what the aliens thought possible. But why? Nethral asked. Why go to such extremes? Professor O's expression became more serious. Because we realized something your ancestors missed. They thought they were studying a primitive species, but we understood that we were being evaluated by an advanced civilization. The question was, what would happen when you came back? Bae activated another section of the display. This showed massive construction projects hidden throughout Earth's solar system. Quantum beacons that had been broadcasting signals toward Veltari space for 300,000 years. We've been calling you home, she explained. These beacons use quantum entanglement to send messages faster than light. We've been broadcasting news of our progress, invitations to return, and detailed analyses of improvements we've made to Veltari technology. The signals were sophisticated, beyond anything in Veltari science. They carried complete blueprints for advanced technologies, philosophical treatises on consciousness and evolution, and artistic works that expressed concepts Veltari language couldn't even describe. You've been teaching us? From across the galaxy? Nethral asked weakly. We've been trying to, O confirmed. Though your people seem to have ignored most of our transmissions. Your technology isn't advanced enough to decode quantum entanglement communications. The revelation that humans had been trying to educate their former observers was somehow more disturbing than everything else. These beings hadn't just evolved. Beyond the Veltari, they had been actively trying to help their former teachers catch up. Show them the monuments, Bay suggested. The display shifted to locations all over Earth, where massive structures rose from the landscape. They were beautiful, beyond description, combining artistic vision with technology that turned matter into living light. The monument to first contact, O explained, zooming in on a structure that seemed to be made of crystallized starlight, built 50,000 years ago to commemorate your visit, and the memorial to the teachers. That's what we call your ancestors who helped guide our early development. Each monument was more impressive than the last. Structures that existed in multiple dimensions. Artworks that told stories through direct manipulation of space-time. Temples where humans could experience the universe through Veltari sensory perception. We've kept your memory alive, Bay said, softly. Your ancestors are honored heroes in our civilization. Children learn about the first teachers before they learn to read. Your visit is celebrated as the most important moment in human history. Nethral realized she was crying, a physiological response she hadn't experienced in decades. The humans had taken what the Veltari considered a minor scientific survey and turned it into the founding mythology of their entire civilization. There's more, O said gently. He activated the final section of the display. The images showed the current state of Veltari civilization, their home worlds, their technology, their population, their current scientific projects, everything displayed in perfect detail, despite being separated by thousands of light years. We've been watching you too, Bay explained. The same quantum techniques that let us study the past also let us observe distant locations in real time. We know about your failed star-building project, your struggle with biological aging, your political conflicts over resource allocation. The display showed Veltari scientists working on problems that humans had solved millennia ago. It showed Veltari philosophers debating questions that human children learned the answers to in elementary school. It showed an entire civilization that had been surpassed by the species they once studied. We've prepared solutions for all of your major challenges, O said. Technological upgrades, biological improvements, social structures that could eliminate your remaining conflicts. We've been waiting 500,000 years to share these gifts with our teachers. Professor O gestured to shut down the display. The truth is, we've been preparing for your return since the day we discovered you had been here. Everything we've become, every advancement we've made, every wonder we've created, it was all designed to impress you, to show you that your students have learned their lessons well. He looked directly at Netheral with eyes that held the accumulated wisdom of 500,000 years of directed evolution. We've been waiting to make you proud. The simple statement carried more weight than all the technological demonstrations combined. These godlike beings still thought of the Veltari as their teachers, still sought their approval, still wanted to show that they had learned their lessons well. Nethral realized that humanity hadn't just evolved beyond the Veltari. They had evolved because of the Veltari, transforming a chance encounter into the driving force of their entire civilization. The aliens hadn't just returned to study human evolution. They had returned to meet their own legacy made manifest in forms beyond their wildest imagination. Dr. Ryu Minjay had insisted on showing the Veltari delegation what he called normal human life. Nethral had agreed, thinking it might provide some relief from the overwhelming displays of advanced technology. She had never been more wrong about anything in her life. They stood on a viewing platform overlooking a human residential district. Below them, millions of humans went about their daily activities in ways that violated everything Nethral thought she knew about the limits of biological existence. "That's Mrs. Park Hyejin," Ryu said, pointing to an elderly woman tending a garden. "She's about 200,000 years old, one of our early consciousness pioneers. She's been working on that garden for about 50,000 years now." The garden was impossible. Plants grew in patterns that formed complex mathematical equations. Flowers bloomed in colors that didn't exist in normal space. Trees bore fruit that seemed to contain miniature galaxies, their branches reaching into dimensions Nethral couldn't see. "She grows them with pure thought," Ryu explained casually. "Mental manipulation of quantum fields. Most humans learn it around age 5. It's considered a basic life skill, like walking or reading." A child ran past them, probably no more than 10 years old by human standards. As she ran, she left a trail of small stars in the air behind her, each one a perfect miniature sun complete. With its own planets, the child was creating solar systems as a side effect of playing. "Young Lee Sujin," Ryu said fondly. "Quite talented for her age. Last week she accidentally created a pocket dimension while doing her homework. Her parents were very proud." Netheril watched the child laugh and run, casually wielding the power to create worlds. "This is normal for human children?" "Oh, yes. We start education quite early. By age 15, most humans can manipulate matter at the subatomic level, travel through time, and communicate across galactic distances using quantum consciousness networks. Basic stuff, really." They walked through the residential area, and every human they encountered was casually doing things that would be considered miracles by Veltari standards. A teenager was reading a book where the words rearranged themselves into different stories based on the reader's thoughts. An adult was having a conversation with someone who was clearly located on another planet, the communication happening through some kind of quantum telepathy. "Mr. Kim Jong-won there is typical." Ryu pointed to a man sitting on a bench. "He works as a stellar engineer, designs new types of stars for our colonies. In his spare time, he studies temporal philosophy and writes poetry that can only be understood by experiencing it through multiple timelines simultaneously." The man looked up and waved at them. As he did, the space around his hand briefly showed glimpses of other realities. Worlds where different versions of himself were living different lives, all existing simultaneously. He's currently experiencing about 47 different versions of his life, Ryu explained. "We find that parallel existence gives people a broader perspective on reality. Most humans maintain awareness of at least 20 alternate selves." Captain Song Tai-hyun joined them at this point, having finished his own demonstration for Kethmiral. The Veltari military observer looked like he had been through psychological trauma. "How did your tour go?" Ryu asked Song. "I showed him our civilian defense protocols," Song replied. "Standard household protection systems. I think he's still processing it." Kethmiral was staring at nothing, his 6 eyes unfocused. "Their children," he whispered. "Their children have personal shields that can deflect stellar-level energy attacks for playground safety." "Well, yes," Song said reasonably. "Children can be quite clumsy. We had several incidents in the early days before we implemented proper safety measures. Little Minho once accidentally created a black hole during recess. The school had to be rebuilt in a different dimension." Dr. An Seo-hyun arrived just as they were entering the education district. She was Earth's Director of Human Development, responsible for managing the various enhancement programs that had transformed humanity over the millennia. "Perfect timing," she said brightly. "I was hoping to show our visitors the advancement centers. We have some fascinating projects running right now." The Advancement Center was a building that existed in a state of constant change, its architecture shifting to accommodate whatever experiments were happening inside. Through transparent walls, they could see humans undergoing modifications that redefined the concept of biological existence. That group is experimenting with consciousness multiplication, An explained, pointing to a room where a single human seemed to exist as multiple separate beings. They're trying to see how many independent thought streams one mind can maintain. The current record is about 2,000. In another room, humans were practicing what An called reality integration, learning to exist simultaneously in multiple universes and merge the experiences into a single consciousness. Very popular among our artists, she noted. They create works that can only be fully appreciated by beings who exist in multiple realities at once. Quite beautiful, really. They passed a group of human students who appeared to be about 12 years old. The children were working on what their teacher called basic problem-solving exercises. Each child was single-handedly managing the ecosystem of an entire planet, adjusting weather patterns, guiding evolution, and maintaining the balance of billions of life forms. "This is introductory-level coursework?" Netheral asked weakly. "First-year ecology," An confirmed. "By graduation, they'll be ready to design their own universes. We find that practical experience is the best teacher." One of the students looked up from her work, a planet where she had just guided the evolution of a new form of sentient life, and waved at the alien visitors. The casual gesture of a child who was playing God with entire worlds was more terrifying than any weapon demonstration. "Dr. An," Netheral said carefully, "what is the upper limit of human capability? What can't you do?" An considered the question seriously. "That's actually a fascinating philosophical question. We've been debating it for about 100,000 years. So far, we haven't found any hard limits." She gestured to another section of the center where adult humans were working on what she called advanced projects. Those researchers are trying to create new forms of mathematics that would allow for more efficient universe design. Over there, we have a team working on consciousness forms that could exist outside of space and time entirely. And that group is experimenting with creating new types of existence that we haven't even named yet. Through the observation windows, Netheral could see humans casually playing with the fundamental forces of reality like children with toys. They were rewriting the laws of physics, creating new forms of matter, and experimenting with concepts. That hurt to think about. "The real challenge," An continued, "is not what we can do, but what we should do. We've found that having infinite power requires infinite responsibility. It took us about 50,000 years to develop proper ethical frameworks for godhood." She said the last word so casually that it took a moment for Netheral to process it. These humans considered themselves gods, not metaphorically, but as a simple statement of fact about their capabilities. "We could remake your entire species in an afternoon if we wanted to," An added thoughtfully. "Give you immortality, infinite intelligence, the ability to manipulate reality at will. But we've learned that forced evolution rarely produces good results. It's better to let species choose their own path." The offer was terrifying, not because it was a threat, but because it wasn't. Dr. An was casually mentioning that humanity could completely transform the Veltari as easily as a human might mention, changing their clothes, and she was explaining why they chose not to do it. As they prepared to leave the Advancement Center, Netheral asked one final question that had been bothering her. "Dr. An, what do humans do for challenges? If you can do anything, control everything, create whatever you want, What keeps life interesting? An smiled, and for the first time, Netherall saw something almost recognizable in her expression, the same curiosity that had driven Veltari exploration. "We're trying to figure out what comes after omnipotence," she said. "It's quite an interesting puzzle. We think we're close to a breakthrough, actually. We've been working on it for about 200,000 years now. The idea that beings who could control reality itself were still trying to evolve further was the most frightening revelation yet. Humanity hadn't reached their limits. They were still growing, still advancing, still becoming something more than what they already were, and they had only been working on the problem for longer than Veltari civilization had existed." Fleet Commander Thexvar stood in the central command chamber of his flagship, staring at reports that read like the fever dreams of a madman. Around him, his senior officers sat in stunned silence, their 6 eyes wide with shock and disbelief. "Read the summary again," Thexvar ordered, though he had already memorized every terrifying word. Science Coordinator Nethral's voice was barely steady as she spoke. "Humans have achieved technological singularity beyond our theoretical models. They manipulate matter, energy, space, and time as easily as we manipulate basic tools. Their children possess capabilities that exceed our greatest scientists. Death has been eliminated. Aging is voluntary. Reality itself can be rewritten through conscious will." Military advisor Dulvex added his own report. "Their military capabilities are beyond measurement. They can fight battles across multiple timelines simultaneously, erase concepts from existence, and manipulate probability to ensure victory before conflicts begin. Our entire fleet could be destroyed without them firing a shot." Science Officer Kethmeral looked up from his analysis screens. "Commander, I've been studying the energy signatures from their demonstrations. Their casual displays of power suggest they could eliminate our civilization without effort. Not just our fleet, our entire species, across all our worlds." The bridge fell silent except for the hum of Veltari technology that now seemed pathetically primitive compared to what they had witnessed. "Options," Thexvar said simply. "We could attempt to flee," suggested Navigation Officer Plexton. "Return to Veltari space and warn the Council." "With what?" Dulvex asked bitterly. "They've been monitoring our home systems for hundreds of thousands of years. They know more about our capabilities than we do. They could stop us from leaving whenever they choose." Netheral activated a holographic display showing the human communication networks they had detected. "They've been trying to contact our home worlds for millennia. The quantum signals they've been sending contain technology advances that could transform our civilization. Our people have been ignoring messages from beings who could reshape reality itself. Because we couldn't understand them," Kethmeral added. "The messages were encoded using mathematics we haven't developed yet. We've been receiving offers of help from gods, and we threw them away as cosmic background noise." Thexvar studied the data for long minutes. "What exactly are they offering us?" "Everything," Netheral replied. "Immortality, unlimited energy, faster than light travel, matter manipulation, consciousness expansion. They want to share all of it. They consider us their teachers and want to show us what they've learned." "And if we refuse?" The question hung in the air like a physical weight. Finally, Dulvex spoke. "They haven't directly threatened us, but, Commander, we're insects compared to them. If they decide we're a problem—" He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. A soft chime indicated an incoming transmission. The communication officer looked up in surprise. "Commander, We're receiving a message from the human capital. It's addressed to you personally. Put it through." The holographic display shifted to show Ambassador Cho Sung-ho sitting in what appeared to be a garden where flowers bloomed, in impossible colors. His manner was friendly, grandfatherly, completely unthreatening. Somehow that made him more terrifying than any weapon. "Commander Thexavar," Cho said with a warm smile. "I hope your crew is comfortable. We've prepared quarters for all of you on Earth if you'd like to extend your stay." The casual invitation was loaded with implications. The humans knew exactly how many crew members were on each ship. Their names, their positions, probably their personal preferences. Complete information about beings they had met for the first time a week ago. "Your people have shown us remarkable things," Thexvar replied carefully. "We're proud of what we've accomplished," Cho agreed. "Though we couldn't have done it without the inspiration your ancestors provided. Their visit changed everything for us." Dr. Kim Ha-young appeared beside Cho in the transmission. "We have a proposal we'd like to discuss with you, Commander. Perhaps we could meet in person? We've prepared a reception in your honor." The words were polite, but Thexvar understood the real message. The humans wanted a formal meeting to discuss terms. Not negotiation, discussion. The difference was terrifying. "We would be honored," Thexvar replied, because refusing was not really an option. The transmission ended, leaving the Veltari officers alone with their fears. "Commander," Nethral said quietly, "there's something else. Dr. Kim mentioned that they've been in contact with 47 other species. I did some research on their galactic communication networks." She activated another display showing a map of the local galaxy. Dozens of star systems were highlighted in blue, connected by lines of quantum communication. These are the species that have joined what humans call their cooperative. Advanced civilizations that now work together under human guidance. They all share technology, resources, and knowledge. And the others? Thexvar asked, though he dreaded the answer. Nethral highlighted several systems in red. Species that refused human offers of cooperation. Their systems are listed as no longer responding to communications. The implications were clear. Species that joined the human cooperative thrived and advanced. Species that refused simply disappeared. "It's not necessarily sinister," Kethmiril said hopefully. "Maybe they just chose isolation." "Maybe," Nethral agreed. "But Commander, look at this." She zoomed in on one of the red systems. "The Zephyrians. We have historical records of contact with them 8,000 years ago. Advanced civilization, powerful military, very proud of their independence." The display showed a star system that was clearly artificial. The planets had been rearranged into perfect geometric patterns. The star itself had been modified. Its energy output optimized and stabilized. "Their system has been completely restructured using human technology," Nethral continued. "Either they accepted human help after all, or the humans restructured it without them." Thexvar finished. The possibility that humanity might casually reorganize entire star systems as improvement projects was somehow more frightening than outright destruction. These beings didn't just conquer, they optimized. A new message arrived, this time from Dr. Kim Ha-young. Her tone was friendly and excited, like a teacher eager to share good news with a favorite student. "Commander, I forgot to mention. We've been monitoring your home systems and we've noticed some problems we could help with. The solar instability in the Velkar system, the resource depletion on Velnoth Prime, the population pressure on your colony worlds. We have solutions for all of these issues." The message continued with detailed analysis of problems the Veltari government considered classified secrets. Somehow, humans observing from thousands of light years away knew more about Veltari domestic issues than most Veltari citizens. We've prepared infrastructure improvement plans for all your worlds, Dr. Kim added. Stellar stabilization, resource renewal, habitat expansion. We could implement these improvements immediately if you're interested. Consider it a gift from students to teachers. The message ended with coordinates for the reception and a gentle reminder that the entire Veltari delegation was welcome to attend. Thexvar looked around at his officers. They all understood the situation. Humanity was offering to solve every problem Veltari civilization faced, to uplift them to levels of existence beyond imagination, to treat them as honored guests in a galaxy that had become humanity's garden. The alternative was to refuse and hope that beings who could rewrite reality would allow them to return home with the knowledge of what they had seen. "Orders, Commander?" Dulvex asked. Thexvar stood silent for long minutes, weighing options that weren't really options against consequences he couldn't begin to calculate. "Prepare for the reception," he said finally. "All senior officers will attend. We're going to hear what our former students have learned." As his crew began preparations, Thexvar made a final log entry. The Veltari came to this system as observers studying primitive life. We are leaving as subjects being studied by beings beyond our comprehension. The students have become the teachers, and we are about to learn whether they are merciful ones. The reception took place in a space that couldn't exist according to Veltari physics. The hall was simultaneously vast and intimate, existing in multiple dimensions while remaining comfortable for beings who could only perceive three. Through transparent walls, the assembled guests could see views of Earth, the galaxy, and what appeared to be other universes entirely. President Moon Jinsu stood at the center of the gathering, her presence radiating the calm authority of someone who had guided humanity through 50,000 years of development. Around her, the most advanced beings in human civilization mingled casually with the Veltari delegation, discussing philosophy and sharing impossible technologies as if they were trading recipes. Fleet Commander Thexvar and his officers stood, together, overwhelmed by their surroundings. The humans had invited representatives from dozens of other species, beings from across the galaxy who had all joined what they called the Cooperative. Each alien species present was clearly more advanced than the Veltari, and each treated humanity with obvious respect and gratitude. "Commander Thexvar," President Moon said, approaching with a warm smile. "Thank you for accepting our invitation. We've been looking forward to this conversation for a very long time." Her words carried gentle weight. This wasn't a negotiation between equals. This was a powerful being graciously offering to discuss terms with much weaker visitors. "The honor is ours, President Moon," Thexvar replied, using the formal protocols Nethral had hastily researched. "Your people have shown us remarkable achievements." "We had excellent teachers," Moon said, nodding toward the Veltari delegation. "Your ancestors' visit provided the inspiration for everything we became. In a very real sense, human civilization exists because of Veltari curiosity." Dr. Park Min-soo, Earth's Director of Galactic Affairs, joined the conversation. She was a small woman, with eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of ages. And when she spoke, her words carried the authority of someone who had shaped the development of countless worlds. "We've prepared several options for Veltari participation. In the Cooperative," Park said, activating a holographic display that showed star charts and development plans. We believe your people would benefit greatly from integration with our networks. The display showed the Veltari home systems as they currently existed, struggling with resource depletion, stellar instability, and technological stagnation. Then it shifted to show the same systems after human intervention. The changes were breathtaking. Dying stars renewed with artificial energy cores. Barren worlds transformed into garden paradises. Space filled with magnificent structures that defied imagination. "This is what we could accomplish together," Moon explained. "Your people would have access to unlimited resources, advanced technology, and the collective knowledge of 47 civilizations. Death would become optional. Aging would be reversible. The boundaries of space and time would no longer limit your expansion." Science coordinator Nethral studied the projections with growing amazement and terror. "You're offering to transform our entire civilization." "We're offering to help you become what you're capable of being," Park corrected gently. "We've learned that forced evolution rarely works, but guided development with willing partners can achieve wonderful things." An alien approached their group, a being that looked like living crystal formations arranged in a vaguely humanoid shape. Its thoughts appeared as colored light patterns that somehow conveyed meaning directly to their minds. "I am Crystalline Entity Designation Prime Harmony," it communicated. "My species joined the cooperative 60,000 years ago. Before human guidance, we were dying out due to our homeworld's energy depletion. Now we exist across 17 star systems and have transcended our original physical limitations. Other aliens shared similar stories. Species saved from extinction, civilizations uplifted beyond their dreams, entire worlds transformed from struggling colonies into paradises of unimaginable beauty and abundance. What do you require from us?" Thexvar asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. "President." Moon's expression became more serious. "Cooperation, integration, a willingness to grow beyond your current limitations. We don't demand submission or servitude. We invite partnership in building something greater than any single species could achieve alone." Dr. Park activated another display showing the galaxy as it currently existed. Blue networks connected hundreds of star systems where cooperative species thrived and grew. But there were gaps. Isolated systems marked in yellow where species had chosen to remain independent. "These civilizations prefer isolation," Park explained. "We respect their choice, though we maintain monitoring systems to ensure they don't become threats to galactic stability." Thexvar noticed that several systems that had been marked red during their earlier briefing were now marked blue. "The Zephyrians," he said. "Our intelligence suggested they had refused to join you." "They changed their minds," Moon said simply. "After observing cooperative worlds for several thousand years, they decided isolation was limiting their potential. We were happy to welcome them." The casual way she discussed thousands of years of observation made it clear that humanity operated on timescales that made Veltari planning seem rushed. These beings thought in geological ages, planning developments that would take longer than most species existed. "Commander," Dr. Park said, her tone becoming more formal, "we need to discuss the realities of your situation. Your people are facing several critical challenges that will threaten your survival within the next few thousand years." The display shifted to show detailed analysis of Veltari space. Problems that the Veltari government tried to keep secret were laid out with surgical precision. resource depletion that would cause economic collapse, stellar instabilities that would make several systems uninhabitable, social tensions that could lead to civil war. We could solve all of these problems, Moon continued, but more importantly, we could help you develop the capabilities to solve them yourselves. The choice is yours. Nethril found her voice. And if we refuse? The question hung in the air for a moment. President Moon's expression didn't change, but somehow the atmosphere in the room became heavier. Then you return to your people with the knowledge of what you've seen here, Moon said quietly. You'll know that solutions exist for all your problems, but you'll be unable to access them. You'll watch your civilization struggle with challenges we could eliminate, knowing that help was offered and declined. She paused, looking directly at each member of the Veltari delegation. More importantly, you'll know that humanity has moved beyond being your students. We've become the teachers now, and the galaxy is our classroom. The age of Veltari influence has ended. The age of human guidance has begun. The words were stated as simple fact, not threat or boast. These beings had transcended the Veltari so completely that they could afford to be generous in victory. Dr. Park added the final piece of information that sealed the Veltari's fate. Your government is already receiving our communication offers. They have been for the past month, ever since we detected your fleet approaching our system. The quantum messages we're sending contain solutions to your resource crisis and blueprints for technologies that could revolutionize your civilization. Thexvar felt his last hope crumble. They're considering your offers. They're preparing to accept them, Moon corrected. Your leaders understand what you're beginning to understand. That cooperation with humanity isn't just an opportunity, it's a necessity for survival in the galaxy we've created. The reception continued around them, but Thexvar barely noticed. He watched human children playing games that involved manipulating small galaxies, saw alien diplomats discussing terraforming projects that spanned multiple star systems, observed casual demonstrations of technology that redefined the possible. As the evening ended, President Moon made one final offer. Commander, your ships are welcome to remain in our system as long as you wish. Your crew could begin integration training immediately. We have excellent educational programs designed specifically for species making the transition to cooperative membership. She gestured toward the viewing wall, which now showed Earth's cities glowing with the light of technologies beyond imagination. Or, you can return home and report what you found. But understand that either way, this is the last time the Veltari will visit Earth as independent observers. Next time you come, it will be as students eager to learn from teachers who once learned from you. That night, alone in his quarters aboard the flagship, Thexvar made his final command decision. He opened a communication channel to Veltari, High Command, and began composing a message that would change the course of his species forever. High Command, this is Fleet Commander Thexvar reporting on first contact with human civilization. Summary: we have encountered a species that has achieved technological and social development beyond our current understanding. They are offering technological exchange and cooperative development agreements. Recommendation: accept all offers immediately. Humanity has become the dominant power in this galaxy, and cooperation with them is essential for Veltari survival and advancement. Paused, considering how to explain the impossible reality they had.